Signal flow and routing. So signal flow is the path that your audio takes, and routing is how to change that path. So we've covered a lot of this stuff before in audio recording and production, so we're just going to do a quick review, and in the next couple of videos we'll look at inserts and auxiliary sends and how we can set those up specifically for our mix and using them here in Pro Tools. So there's a handful of ways that you can route your signal, and that is with inserts, auxiliary sends and returns, and buses. So right here in Pro Tools, the way that we're going to be adjusting those things are, a lot of it is with our inputs and outputs here. So our inputs on our tracks, on these tracks that have recorded audio on it, really isn't that important, because realistically the input of this overhead track, for instance, is the regions list, the region that is an overhead track. So that right there is the input of this track. So this track is kind of pulling double duty here as an audio track. It's both providing the audio and providing an output for it to go. So as you can see, the output of that track is analog 1 and 2, as with every other track in our session, and that is what's making it possible for it to go out and come to our headphones or speakers or however we're listening to this. So that's kind of some of the routing happening here. The buses, we already worked on busing with changing our MIDI tracks to audio, and that's why we can see some of the inputs are based on buses here. Bus 3 is what we use to go to the bass from its original track, and bus 1 and 2 for the organ. Okay, so we're going to utilize those, and as you can see here, if we go and click on that, our interface is going to give us the inputs for the interface we're using, which in this circumstance it's a 002 rack, so I've got 18 potential inputs. And then the bus, this is Pro Tools LE, so there's 32 buses. As far as our output, you can see we have the same kind of thing with our audio outputs, and we're using analog 1 and 2, which is the default output for going to your speakers and headphones and such. And then buses, we have access to those same 32 buses. So as you can see, any track can be routed to different buses, and different buses can be routed back into them. Okay, in addition to our inputs and outputs here on each track, we have different ways of routing the signal to and from tracks. So that's with inserts and sends. And these are, when it says sends, these are our auxiliary sends. So let's take a quick little review real quick about what inserts and auxiliary sends are. You probably remember some of these images from audio recording and production if you watched that. But this right here is an image of an insert. So basically with an insert we have our input of the track, and as the track signal's going on, there's a break in the track to send the signal away to a processor. It becomes processed and returns back to the track and continues on in the same place where it left off and comes out the out of the track. So the key here is that there's no blue in the output of this track, that the entire signal has been changed and processed, and so now we only have green signal in the track. So if we switch over to our auxiliary send and return, what happens is our signal continues on in the track, and a portion of it gets sent away to the processor, and then that process signal returns and mixes in with the original signal at some other point in the mix. And so as you can see, the end result is both a mixture of blue signal and green signal in this example here. So there's the ways we do that in Pro Tools are with our inserts up here and our auxiliary sends and returns. And we're going to talk about those two specifically in the next two videos. So there's our signal flow and routing.